All right, family, we must be doing something right. And I know my mum must be proud of me, and Jordan, your mum too at the moment. But we have...
That going to be good this afternoon.
Guys, we have the Prime Minister with us today on the show. Thank you so, so much for coming onto the show. We know how busy you are. So from one Wellington man to another, we appreciate you stopping by, and it feels like we're doing something right. So thank you so much for joining us today.
That's awesome to be here. It's great to be part of it.
So there's so much, obviously, that we have to get through and that we'd love to talk about. But I think it's just really good to get to know you kind of on a personal level. So obviously Jacinda has been there and did such an amazing job for a long time. But what's like one thing that you've kind of fallen into since you've become the Prime Minister and gone, hold on a second, what's this all about? I didn't see this coming. What's something that's kind of taken you by surprise?
I guess, I mean, it's a huge job. The day that I got sworn in as Prime Minister, I was driving up the front driveway at Government House, and I got a text message from Jacinda saying, tag, you're it. And and then from then on in, you know, my whole life has changed. And so it does change your life fundamentally. And I kind of knew that when I put my hand up to be Prime Minister. I knew that my life was going to change a lot. But even then, there are still moments where you sort of, you know, everything that you do from the minute you get out of bed to the minute you go back to bed at night has to be organised. You know, everywhere I go, I have to let someone know that that's where I'm going, so that the security people can,
all
of
that
out.
Around here.
And then, you know, it's just every conversation you have to have a conversation recognising that, you know, it's a public conversation basically. So, sort of not much is private in this job.
Wow.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, because I'm a little bit strange. I look at political party leaders, and especially, you know, prime ministers like yourself, and I wonder, and maybe this is my first question to you, how are you? How are you doing? Like, I don't think we get to ask the Prime Minister that. Like, how are you actually doing? How are you feeling?
I absolutely love the job. And so that's one of the things that I can, you know, there are really challenging days. There are really difficult days. There are really long days, and you get really tired doing the job. But actually, if you love the job, then, which I do, then you just keep going through all of that, because, you know, it's such a rewarding job as well. You get to make a real difference. And so, you know, I've only been doing it for 6 months. And so we're going into an election campaign, and people are saying, you know, what have you done? What about this? What have you done? What about that? And I'm kind of saying, well, I've only actually been doing the job for 6 months. Give me a bit more time, and then I'll be able to answer more of those questions. But an election campaign really is an opportunity for me to set out a bit more about, well, what do I want to do? So over the next 3 years, if I get the opportunity to continue as Prime Minister, over the next 3 years, what do I want to achieve in the job?
Does it feel a little bit like a group project where you've kind of come in late and then you get asked to present it to the class?
It's actually a really good analogy.
I didn't draw that, but
no, it's actually a really good analogy. So when you become Prime Minister, particularly, you know, not long before an election, you're basically picking up all of the work that's been led by someone else. So Jacinda sort of led our government really well, in my view, for the last 5.5 years, and I've kind of come in at the last, you know, for the last part of that. And my job really is to continue on that work through to the election, because these are the things that we campaigned on last time, and New Zealanders voted for us on the basis of what we were promising them last time. And so my job has been to finish as much of that work as I can, and you know, and then sometimes reprioritise where we needed to reprioritise. But this election campaign, I get to set out a bit more about what I want to do. So it's actually quite a good analogy.
Yeah,
I might use that one. Yeah, I might use that one.
Run us through prioritising, because we obviously, one thing, and we're going to get into so much more, but one thing that we try and live by, because you're still a human at the end of the day, is work-life balance. But I can't imagine that the work-life balance is 50-50 for you. How are you dealing or juggling all of that at one time?
Well, I guess I'm kind of lucky. If you're in a job where you don't really worry about work-life balance because you love your job so much, and you're really inspired by it, and it's just integrated into your life. If you're someone who has that kind of job, I think you're really lucky, and I do. And so I don't really sort of think about work-life balance in that sense, and that there's a distinction between what I do at work and what I do outside of work. Probably with one exception, and that is the family stuff. You know, my family need to have me for a bit of time where it's just me, and that's probably a bit that I don't necessarily manage as well as I should.
Yeah, definitely. Just because your time, Paul, we're going to get straight into these questions. So I'd like to start, Prime Minister, by asking, and we've asked this to every political leader, can you share a personal story or experience that has shaped your personal values or political beliefs?
Oh, plenty of them, actually. I mean, if I think right back to some of my earliest days as a kid, and I was talking about this a few weeks ago, there's a little story in the New Zealand Herald about it. I've got these real memories of family summer holidays at a batch in northern Taranaki. And it was one of those old-fashioned Kiwi batches. So it was, built out of driftwood and car packing cases. There was no electricity, no running water, long drop toilet out the back. And actually it was a good, that real kind of Kiwi summer. It was like camping, but in a kind of in a shack-like house. And so a lot of those experiences, I think, kind of define what I think the Kiwi lifestyle is all about. It's about being with people who you care about. It's about having fun. It's about having amazing experiences. And then I think through my secondary schooling, or even my primary schooling, and then my intermediate secondary schooling, and I think about some of the teachers who I've had during that time who have helped to define the values that I have. And of course, my parents. My parents undoubtedly have had a huge influence on my life. They've, raised me with values like, there's pretty fundamental ones, like you treat other people the way that you would want someone to treat you. I think if we teach all of our kids that, then we're actually a long way to achieving the sort of society that I'd be proud to live in and for my kids to grow up in. So we were constantly asked as kids to think about, well, how would you feel if someone did that to you? And if everybody thinks along those lines, then actually I think the world will be a much better place.
Yeah, without a doubt.
100%.
We were saying this, why I said this to David Seymour, is one thing I don't envy about being a politician is you're damned if you do and if you're damned if you don't. Like there's the pressure that is situated with being a politician, and I'm going to say a prime minister on top of that is a challenge that I was like, nah, I'm good. I'll wipe my hands with that. And I think you're doing a good job. There's not many greys coming through just yet. No, you're doing
not so far. A bit of salt and ginger in there.
You're doing good.
Somewhere.
Strawberry lush.
Brook's got more greys.
I got more
than
greys
you,
actually. The pressures of life. But what's some of the challenges that you're finding at the moment, especially with this next 6 to 7 weeks?
Obviously, there's just never enough time. Every day you wake up in the morning, you got a list of things that you want to do that day, and every day when you go to bed, the list is longer than it was when you got out of bed. You might have ticked a few things off, but you've added a whole lot more things on. So, I guess the challenge is, there's just not enough hours in the day. And the other one is the one that we were just talking about before. I've got the balance of I'm still trying to run the country, still trying to be Prime Minister, but also I am starting to think a bit more about the election campaign. Some of the other political parties have been on the campaign trail, it feels like forever. And we are late starters in this campaign. Governments generally tend to be, because you're busy running the country. And
Correct.
So we've actually got to keep running the country, and increasingly, though, we'll be on the campaign trail in the next few weeks.
Awesome. Who was your biggest inspiration growing up, and have you ever told them?
I had, and aside from my whānau, my own family, so my mum and dad have always been huge inspirations for me, and they know that, and I've had the opportunity to tell them that. But I also have had some amazing teachers, for example. I had a teacher in Form 2 at Hutt Intermediate, Mr. Hodge, who I did have the opportunity to run into a few years back, actually not long after I became Minister of Education. And I was able to tell him what a significant impact he had on the way I view the world. He was a real environmentalist. But he was also a real, placed a real emphasis in his teaching on the interaction between the kids in his class. So making sure that we understood each other and that we interacted positively with each other. And the values that I got from that, the values that have informed a whole lot of stuff that I've done in politics, the value of empathy. Is something that we massively underestimate. So that ability to kind of put yourself in someone else's shoes and go, well, if that was me, how would I feel? I just think that is something that the world needs a whole lot more of.
It's actually been sad to see it through the Jacinda campaign, where something so powerful like the word empathy has kind of been dirtied in a way by people who are actually just really tired. But it's still such a really important word. It's still such an important concept for us to have. Do you feel that? Do you I feel like it's not a dirt. I feel like we say empathy and it's like a lot of public are like, oh, here we go again. Yeah, empathy. But it is this really important thing to be a Kiwi.
But we have a lot of empathy as Kiwis, and it's actually what got us through the COVID-19 period. And I know I think we've all got a bit of PTSD when it comes to COVID. I think we all want to kind of not talk about it and just pretend that it never happened. True. But it did happen. And actually the phenomenal outcome that we got for New Zealand, we had some of the lowest death rates from COVID of any other country in the world. That was as a result of people actually being empathetic towards one another, and people saying, look, I will make a personal sacrifice because that's what's good for the people around me, whether it's my own family or people I've never met. I will do this because it's the right thing to do for other people. And, the COVID-19 restrictions, the rules, never would have worked if people hadn't willingly complied with them. And they did that because they were caring about others. So I hope, in time, once the immediate kind of, I guess, aftermath of the pandemic has all died away and settled down, that people will look back with a degree of pride on what we were able to do during that time, because it was a phenomenal response, and it wasn't just government, it was actually the whole of New Zealand coming together.
Mr. Prime Minister, we'll give you the best of both worlds on this show. So obviously these are, great answers, but also on the other side, if someone was to play you in a movie, who would play you in the movie, and what sort of movie are we looking at? Is it a scary movie? Is it a comedy? What sort of role and movie would it be?
I don't know, actually. I looked. That's a new question.
Oh, we'll stump them. There we go.
You have stumped me. I've never really kind of thought that far ahead. So I'd have to go away. I don't get to watch many movies these days, so I probably couldn't.
Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington. Yeah, well, there might be a bit of an issue with that. But I'd have to go away and think about that. I really don't know.
Well, Mr. Prime Minister, David Seymour did say Ryan Gosling would play him.
Really?
So that doesn't make sense.
He has high aspirations, I think.
He does. Last little quick fire just from this segment. What would a perfect night out look for you?
Oh, these days a perfect night that I get to stay at home.
That's okay too.
Nice home cooked meal, and maybe watch a movie and then go to bed, because I don't get to do that very often these days. But
favorite home cooked meal.
Favourite home cooked meal? Depends if am I cooking it or someone else cooking it.
Oh, can you cook?
Yeah.
Prime Minister,
come on now.
Cook?
So
talk about it.
If I'm cooking, I cook a mean lasagna.
I love lasagna.
I love making lasagna. It's a great meal to cook. But if I was cooking it, that's probably what it's going to be. If someone else is going to cook it for me, I love a nice steak with some nice roast potatoes. Some roast veggies, good gravy.
Couple that with a good red,
with a béarnaise sauce.
Love that!
Look, here we go.
Awesome.
All right, we've got some political questions to ask you now, and then we're going to finish up with a segment called Relatable or Rehateable. So this is the easy stuff now, the political stuff. I just wanted to know from you, Prime Minister, what's the most pressing issue you think Aotearoa is facing right now?
I think if you think about families and what families are dealing with on a day-to-day basis, it's the cost of living. So, the issue that I think confronts people is when they go to the supermarket and they see how much it's costing, how much extra it's costing to fill up their grocery car, how much extra they're paying when they fill up the car, their electricity bills going up. It's undoubtedly the cost of living. The cost of everything has gone up so much. So I think the real answer to that is to make sure, first of all, that we get inflation under control so that costs don't keep going up, but then make sure people's incomes actually keep up with the rising cost of living. So we've actually got an environment now, finally, where we're back to the point where people's incomes are rising faster than rising costs. We have to keep it that way so that people can catch up again.
How do you get inflation under control, though?
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, the challenge really is that the biggest tool that the country has is interest rates, right? So as interest rates go up, spending goes down, and therefore inflation comes down, and that's why people are finding that a bit tough, because if you're a mortgage holder, your interest rates have gone up, but if you're a renter, the mortgage of the people who are renting that house to you have gone up, and so your rent's probably going up. And so one of the best things that we can do is get inflation back down, and interest rates are one of the ways we do it. We look at making sure that we're being really careful in government spending, because government spending, so if we did something like tax cuts, for example, that would put a whole lot more money into the economy. It would actually mean inflation stays higher for longer. It would mean interest rates stay higher for longer. So making sure that the decisions we take as a government aren't actually contributing to the inflationary problem.
Nice.
Mr. Prime Minister, can you please explain to us what the Labour Party stands for today? But can you do it in a way that you're looking at like a whole lot of 6 and 7-year-olds sitting in the classroom?
Not to be confused with their dumb. We're just, not as connected to politics.
Totally. So for us, it's really simplifying what Labour stands for today.
Look, I really believe that if you go out, you get yourself a good education, you work hard, then you should be able to get ahead. So you should be able to buy your own home. You should be able to create a better life for yourself and for your family. And fundamentally, the Labour Party stands for that. So it's in the names. We are the Labour Party. We're the party of workers, the party of people who are working hard and want to get ahead. We want to make sure that through hard work you can get ahead, so you can get a fair share of the reward for the work that you're putting in. So I think that's what the Labour Party was founded based on, and I think that's what we stand for today.
Nice. And finally, no matter who runs the country past the election, what do you see New Zealand being able to win at globally? Other than the World Cups and stuff like that, but what is something like we can be, world beaters at?
We can be one of the cleanest, greenest, most sustainable economies in the world, and we can make a lot of money out of that as well. So if you think about our primary produce, our sheep, our beef, our dairy, countries around the world, even our veggies, fruit and veggies, countries around the world want to buy that stuff from us, but they want to know that we're clean, green and sustainable. Consumers want to know that. When they go to the supermarket, they want to see a clean, green, sustainable label on everything. And we can be the best country in the world for that. We can be the best country in the world for renewable energy. So we have, electricity generation in New Zealand's already, most of our electricity comes from renewable sources like hydro, wind, solar and so on. We can get to 100% and we can be the most sustainable country in the world when it comes to electricity. So I think the overall message is in that clean, green space, we should be one of the best countries in the world for that. And we can make money off it. We will be able to sell our produce internationally for higher returns. We will see more tourists wanting to come here and spend more money because of our image internationally.
Awesome. Hey, we're gonna
this is
because we know we don't have much time. These are questions that have been submitted from our listeners to figure out how relatable politicians are. Okay, so it's called relatable or hateable. But Chris Hipkins, no one's gonna hate you. You got a great vibe about you. Don't worry about that. First question, quick fire, about 10. Do you put your bread in the fridge or the cupboard?
The fridge.
Because
I have to put it in the fridge because I'm never home long enough to eat it before the use-by date.
We understand.
And so it goes all mouldy if I leave it on the,
You're not
in
wasteful.
the cupboard. So no, I put it in the fridge and then you can keep eating it even after the use-by date's gone.
I love that. Where do you buy your bed linen and what fabric are they made of?
Briscoes.
Nice.
And I generally go for the cotton ones. I like the cotton ones.
Hey, Briscoe's always got a 70% off sale somehow.
That's right. Yeah, but you've got to. You only ever buy when there's a sale on. Never pay full price.
That's true. What rules do you play with for last card? What are your last card rules you go by?
Oh, I don't. To be honest, I haven't played a card game probably since I was at school. So
that's okay because you're busy being ambitious, trying to be the leader of New Zealand. Love that. If you take food to someone's house to share, do you leave the leftovers or take them home?
Always leave them.
There's only one answer. You nailed
That's really
it.
good. Do you do the dishes?
Yes, I do. Yeah, and I have a rule too in my house: if someone else cooks, then I have to do the dishes.
Correct.
Relatable.
Even as the Prime Minister?
Yeah, even as the Prime Minister, still do it.
I like that. Can you drive manual?
Yes, absolutely. I tell you what, I thank my parents for that. They made us learn in a manual car, even though by that point automatics were more popular, because they wanted us to be able to drive anything. I tell you, I can not just drive a manual car, I can drive a manual truck.
Okay.
Can you reverse a trailer?
That's really good.
I can reverse a truck and trailer, although I haven't done it for years.
Oh, come on now.
I hope no one puts me to the test on that, but I used to be able to reverse
Next
a truck
time we're going to have a trailer and truck and we're just going to test
Parked
it.
outside.
We're almost there. How much should a pie cost everyday Kiwis?
Or not too much.
Prime Minister, come on, lock in a price. Lock in a price. Whereabouts?
A good pie should be less than $5.
Agree.
I would get down with it.
Okay. Yeah, that's realistic. What mayonnaise brand do you put in your trolley?
Generally Watties.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. That's all right. That's good. Let's Go on Warriors or Up the Waz?
Up the wires.
Up the wires.
Great. 2 more questions. In high school, what would your lunch typically consist of?
Oh no, this is going to look really bad for me.
No, hey, Marc grew up on a farm, so he said, steak and all of that, all the good
Crayfish
steak.
as well.
He was like, I didn't want it. I wanted, so he had a privileged life, so don't worry about sounding privileged.
The school canteen at my secondary school used to do these awesome fish finger rolls. So they were like a long roll with fish fingers and tomato sauce and mayonnaise and stuff in them. So I used to love those. I used to eat them quite a lot. I've also had a real weakness for raspberry buns, but they have to have a good. You got to get the right amount of cream in them, and it's got to be real cream. None of that mock cream.
Yeah, definitely. What is minimum wage right now?
Good question. I don't actually know that off the top of my head, and I should.
That's all right. Yeah. That's all right. I didn't either. Last one. What's the most you'd pay for an avocado?
I don't buy a lot of avocados, actually. Generally, when I do, I buy them in the little, the packets of avocados. I wouldn't pay more than a couple of dollars.
Yeah, that's good.
About right.
Yeah. That's about right. Hey,
that's about right. Hey, Mr. Prime
that's all the
Minister.
questions. That's all they are. Thank
Hey,
you.
before we know that you're rushing, but on the way out, obviously it's a big 6 or 7 weeks for you. Is there anything you'd like to say just to let everybody know what you guys are going to be doing or what the next 6 or 7 weeks looks like for you?
So the next 6 or 7 weeks, we're going to be more and more on the campaign trail. So next week we've got Parliament sitting, and we've got 2 more weeks after that. So 3 weeks of Parliament left, and then Parliament's done until after the election, and then we're going to be on the campaign trail. So for me, it'll be waking up somewhere different every day. I get to travel to all far-flung corners of the country. I'm really looking forward to it because being on the campaign trail, you get to just interact with people on a daily basis, just people going about their everyday lives. and you get to hear the stories of New Zealanders, and you get to hear about their hopes and aspirations for the country, and that's the bit about campaigning that I really enjoy.
Awesome. Prime Minister, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you again soon.
Cheers, guys.